There. Check. Apparently so. As allegiance, and we'll get started. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Today is the 10th of November. This is the regular Smithfield Township Planning Commission meeting. We do have a quorum present. Do we have everybody that's here? We got everybody down?
Michael's coming, but
He said he would be coming and would have to leave early, but maybe that's changed.
Okay. All right. All right, let's take a look at our meeting minutes from last week. Everybody take a look at them, please.
make a motion, we approve the minutes as written.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as written by Dave Strunk. I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, we're approved.
Are we gonna end up tabling the Mountain Manor discussion? Because I see this letter here.
Well, I see that the
It appears to
request
be
for, we will table it at some point here, but hang on a second here. We're gonna get there.
I just know there's people in the audience that may
Yeah.
not want to stay if that's gonna be tabled.
Well, we are ultimately gonna table it, but I do want to talk on it for a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any public comments on the agenda itself? Okay. New business and plans. Looks like the Franklin Hill Manor is yet again requested be tabled until January 31.
Now, when it says table
Whoop.
till January 31, that's the extension till January 31. It would be tabled to next.
All
or the
right.
request would be tabled for the December.
All right. Why are we doing that? Why is there a request for this? Haven't we gone through this?
We received an email from Mr. Meckes on November 9, which I believe was yesterday, saying that he still needs to do some things with respect to the plan regarding Mr. Tressler's review. And for whatever it's worth, I also understand that he had his second child yesterday.
Oh, well, that's a happy event. But we're gonna,
That may have affected, I don't.
Yeah, well, we're also gonna-
say that.
but we're also gonna throw in Thanksgiving here. I mean, seriously, is December for real? Or are we gonna, should we just put this on January?
That's up to you. You can go to January because he's extended it to the end of January. So that's your call. You know, he's asking for a tabling. You can either table, not table, or table it
Right.
whatever you want. So
Right. John, there were things that you had to have on this, correct?
Yeah.
Is it-
There were only, I think he's getting the engineering issues resolved. I don't know where he stands with getting easements from the neighbors. He needs some easements for his stormwater discharge. I presume they're in discussions. They may
Okay.
be going okay, they may not be going okay, I don't know.
All right, then I make a motion that we actually table it to the first meeting in January of 2023. That'll be an organizational meeting, but there's no reason this can't be on it. Because I don't think they're gonna get all of that done between now and the beginning.
the date, with your permission, I have it as January 12th. That's the second Thursday.
That's second Thursday, January 12th. All right, that's my thing, January 12th, 2023. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Doug. Discussion?
Discussion.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I was trying to explain to my father-in-law that we were extending that
January 12th,
January 12th.
not December. I don't want it onto the December agenda. But, all right, all in favor, by the way? Aye, okay. And did we get that, Michael? Has arrived? How you doing?
Hi, sorry, I'm late.
No, it's okay. All right. So it'll be January 12th. Yes.
There has been no discussion, John, no discussion with the neighbors about stormwater.
Okay.
He's never contacted my father-in-law about the water issue. So
Well, that's,
maybe.
to me, that's an outstanding item that has to be addressed.
Okay. All right. Next thing, Black Buffalo. It says table to February 9, 2000.
Table to February 9, extended to February.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm
I
gonna,
guess when I send in the extensions I receive, they or whomever notes that it's tabled to them, but it's extended until February 9. So again, you can table that till January if you want to, I suppose, if you want, or next month.
If they come back in.
well, if they don't come back in, yeah, you know what? January 12, 2003. Yeah. I say we table it to the January one.
Right. Who's that, Black Buffalo?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, if there isn't anything, I would plan on a motion to deny, and that's the end of it. Send it on to the supervisors
That's why I thought that-
after the extension. Yeah.
After we consider it on January the
Yeah,
12th.
you know.
Doesn't matter.
That's a decent-
All right. Now, we'll get to the signage one next, after this. It's to table it to January 12,
I'll make
2023.
that motion.
Yeah. Got everybody? Okay. All right.
Wait, it's motioned and.
It's all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, you're right. Thank you.
Okay,
All right, I want to talk about the Russell Scott one first here, because what was that? Whatever that was email. Yeah,
That's,
because I'm not coming here and picking up a packet of something that's not on my agenda.
it's a petition to amend zoning change.
Yeah, no, it's a zoning change, but he sent in something or other.
Is it in this envelope?
Yeah.
There's also
I don't know.
offering-
Is it an amended petition? Because that's what he had asked.
No, he sent something that was,
Letter.
there was some it,
The letter's on the top.
it's in here? Okay,
We got the same thing.
he wants to be on the December 8th.
Yeah, this is it.
That's,
He's offering to give some land to the township for the park.
oh, yeah, terrific.
And-
No,
We didn't get the.
I pretty much know it all.
okay,
he was here at last night's meeting, Mr. Maturja, to confirm that the December 14 date is the date for the public hearing by the supervisors on the zoning amendment. So he has said if that's going to be the date, then we can wait till December 8th to present the matter to the planning commission, which is your planning commission date in December. So I suppose that's why it says what it says. But again, it's like when we were young lawyers and we could get our heads chopped off.
Yeah.
Attorney Morgan, like you, that the judge does. you know.
right,
Council, Your Honor, the council and I have agreed to continue this matter.
really?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I've stood ankle deep in my own blood enough times.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever you guys want to do. But he was here last.
Yeah,
night,
go
and
ahead.
He made that pitch.
Yeah, Michael,
Before you table this, which sounds like you're
well,
fine to do.
I don't know yet.
I just like to. We discussed this already, correct? 2 months ago?
Indirectly, we did. yeah.
Just indirectly.
You did, and what occurred was that his his number of parcels, he had 6 parcels that were part of this, were either incorrect or not clear. So he had to file a new petition or an amended petition that now refers to 8 parcels with 5 ID numbers.
At present, they are zoned what?
I think they're all zoned residential R1.
What are?
Could be R2. I don't remember. without seeing the paper.
They're all are one or.
At least they're all residential.
They're all residential, and he is hoping they move to ED.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are
I
they
believe he
congruous
wants to
to another ED?
No, well, I mean, maybe they, yeah,
I mean, it's relevant because otherwise it's just, it's spot zoning, you can't do it, but if they're adjacent, sorry, I shouldn't say first, adjacent to an existing.
Well, the planning commission, the Monroe County Planning Commission made a
raised,
comment that there could be a spot zoning.
yeah, they raised those
I haven't
concerns.
Looked at it enough because I'm not there yet, if you know what I mean. When it's before me, before you, then I'll look at it. But
I mean,
I think he wants to build a warehouse. I think he wants to give some property to the park. And I think he wants to do something else. And I think he can only do that. Well, you always can give property to the park no matter when, but I think you only can do the warehouse with an EV.
That's right. Why would we do that? Anybody?
Why would you want to change everything to an ED zone and not just what
Mhm.
he's looking to do with the property that he wants?
Well, I think it's his property, maybe with 2 or 3 other parcels around it.
Can he just change the one that he, or try to change the one that he wants to instead of doing?
Can, but that really then
Maybe a question of making
could be a spot zoning issue then.
the EV zone along the open road.
It would have to be contiguous.
Well, it's a legislative change. You don't have to do anything.
No.
It's a legislative
But
change.
you've
This
got
is-
to review it, and I'm saying you've got to review it.
What does that mean?
Planning commission still needs it.
I mean, it's the supervisor's change. Like, we're under no obligation to change somebody's zoning because somebody puts in a petition to request a zoning. We have no, this is purely,
It's not appealable.
it's not appealable. It's a purely legislative matter ultimately for the supervisors to decide. It is, I don't even, I mean,
You can't provide our input though.
we can,
I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you have to.
My one- I
The zoning
actually don't-
changes say that.
I don't know anything about the neighbors, which is obviously would be concern number one, any of the residential neighbors. I don't know anything about that.
well, it's surrounded by it.
Right. My only comment that I would make, and honestly knowing nothing about property, is simply that I have made a comment in the past that when we converted all commercial to economic development, one of the things that I think we didn't necessarily think through, we were trying to promote this sort of mixed use opportunity. But what that does do ultimately is add residential, which is not always great for tax base. And I had made a comment in the past that exploring current residential areas that could be ED was, I thought would be smart. Because that was also the idea of certain, for instance, I gave an example. Fixing a corridor, if you think about, you know, I think I gave an example of Gemma Keystone as a type of like a small little restaurant in amongst residential, or the general store, which is currently non-conforming buildings, but I think those types of things, small little general stores, that's not the same as this, which is a warehouse, but I'm just.
Well, I think it's a great idea. For example, if you're up in like Wooddale, you know, if you want to get something like a loaf of bread, it'd be nice if there's a little general store. I'm not thinking, I don't say we want to have a Sheetz.
Right.
But then again, is that economically feasible to have a mom and pop type of store up there?
No, I don't know, but you know, I also know you can't do it unless it was sort of like a mixed use.
Yeah.
Economic development zone, although that's not necessarily what this is, because it's talking about a warehouse, so it's kind of not the same thing.
I may say something. I think there are 2 questions here, and that's, I'd like the planning commission to be able to discuss this at the next meeting, the 12th, and that is, there's this plan that we've never seen for a warehouse. Okay, which is a new one. But there's 2 questions. There's another question, which is this an area where the zoning should be changed? This could be changed to R2. It could be changed to ED. They both have different ramifications as far as what could be built there. Right now, it's R1 and it's nothing. And I just think it's something that the planning.
What is R1? Is that residential only?
Yes.
But I thought it was, recreational, because it was a golf course once before.
I thought it was zoned RC, but
No, it isn't. It's R1.
Really?
the whole golf course?
So, I think it's a good question for discussion. What would we like it to be?
I don't know if we want it to be a giant.
Say again?
I don't know if we want it to be a giant residential neighborhood.
Well, that's what he's saying in his argument.
That's
But
what
I mean,
he's
it
trying to
looks like
scare
there
us
is
with.
Giant residential all around.
Bullshit
except
out
on the
of
front
that.
side.
Frosted red balls.
You know what? Is
That
this
really
Milford Road
did.
right here?
But don't, because you know what? Because if he'd wanted,
What is that?
because if he thought it was going to be so, he would have been already.
Yeah.
Don't give me that crap.
Well, it's just following what Mike was saying. It's R2, saying, you still have a PUD in the middle of it, which is.
That's true.
commercial.
Mhm.
So that might be an interesting use.
Mhm.
You can do that in PUD, but then you can build multifamily.
And you're closer to what is behind it, because there's I'm sorry, and you're closer to what is already surrounding it and behind it.
Reel this in.
Yeah, I get it.
That's up here, but the other one that the guys tried to do for a while. And. Lock it all in the back one.
The only part of this that actually kisses, Milford Road, is these little parts.
Yeah.
I got you.
And the
'Cause
rest
what's-
of it is- This is, the dollar store. This
My-
is
Yeah,
Craig's Meadow Road.
my overarching concern is all the stuff that's around it there, which is
Yeah,
residential.
all this is
Well,
residential.
residential is really on the other side of Berkeley.
Yeah, so
And in the golf course.
there are houses in,
I think it's worth knowing where the
It's
plan,
it's
where.
rentals. So some are
Okay.
single family rentals, that's all.
this is a zoning change. This is a zoning change request and not a plan. So I don't know what he's coming in with.
So that's why I think it's worth a discussion about where are we going with this property, or what would we like? Because it's the last big parcel in the township that has not been developed, or there's no plan for it developing except this warehouse complex. I don't think, but honestly, will fly with, the residents around there, or maybe supervisors, I don't know, because it's never been presented to us, so I'm talking out of turn here, but.
I understand.
Doesn't seem anything that excites us.
I understand. All right, I'll make a motion that we take the review of Russell well, it's not really a review. Petition to amend the zoning ordinance proposed by Russell Scott. And that we table it to December 8, 2022. Seconded by Michael Albert. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, all right. Now, you said before we go to the sign one, Michael, how much time you got? Okay. You said there's something that we could dispose of that wasn't on this agenda, but is here.
Thank you.
I'll dispose of Nate in short order.
This is the realignment of Franklin Hill Road. Project that we're working on for Dr. Khan, this will be called Westfield Commons. Located right here, has property here that also goes across up to the existing alignment of Franklin Hill Road. The realignment had been planned years ago. In fact, there was a right of way here that is owned now by the sewer authority, but ultimately to be conveyed to the township for a realignment. There's
Isn't it
also
the sewer pump station in there?
sewer pump station.
Oh, it's up there. Okay, got it.
So these two pieces were created at the same time, and they just have to get both conveyed to the sewer authority. But there is a letter from the sewer authority that says they'll be glad to convey it back to the supervisor for the purpose of realignment.
So I'm sorry, could you show me just with your finger, where's 447?
447 is right here.
Okay, and then Franklin Hill, it's right where it comes.
This is Franklin Hill Lane that goes down to the
Yeah.
school district.
Okay,
This is the existing Franklin
Yeah.
Hill coming out the
Yeah.
Y, and this is the proposed realignment.
okay.
So this is undeveloped right now. There's a little wetland in here.
A little duck sit in there.
Now, would that section of Franklin Hill go away?
We have to, yes, it will go away, and we still have to work that out, what would happen if that were abandoned. The two lots that exist here now, one has access up here and one has access down here. So they don't directly access on that piece of it, but if it's abandoned, we have to figure out, typically it would go back to the property owners on either side.
Isn't there a church and a school up in there?
Well, the school is,
You're thinking the other side, I think. So this is the side towards East Stroudsburg.
Ah, okay,
Oh, that's.
all right.
The church and school is the next turn up,
So
the crest of the hill.
All right, okay.
to properly develop this piece of property, it really does need access at a traffic light and have good access to Route 447 rather than this condition here. So Dr. Khan is working with the supervisors on a multimodal grant. It's estimated to be about $1.3 million to get everything needed to realign, design, construct this intersection improvement. There's some improvements that would happen up and down on 447. So we came into the supervisors, asked them to have a resolution with the goal of getting 2/3 of the money from the multimodal grant and 1/3 of the matching funds from the developer in the form of right-of-way granting, engineering services, and funds to do the construction. As part of that grant, there's a requirement that comes to the planning commission and you confirm that it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. Basically, it is in that it's a public safety improvement, it's a roadway improvement, it provides access potential for an economic development project. And I think specifically there's mention of this improvement in your comprehensive plan. And John took a look at that and then.
Yeah, I sent out a letter late today. I mean, it was just, we got backed up trying to get everything out, but I did take a look at it. It is consistent with our comprehensive plan. I did send a letter, probably got here about 4 o'clock.
You guys want.
So will that serve the purpose or do you need it on planning commission letterhead, Nate?
I think we should probably have just a motion from the planning commission that it is consistent, as recommended by the engineer. I think we just need something for the grant application.
All right, I just have a question. Sorry to. Is this the same lot as Dr. Khan was discussing a number of years
Yes.
ago? Okay,
This has been
so this was
engineered-
going to be a short stay medical place or?
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can talk about, we also submitted a sketch for the project and John has a review on that. Appreciate it very
Yeah,
thorough.
yeah.
We don't intend to go through all those comments tonight. We can give you an overview of that project after this, if
right.
you'd like, or we can take John's comments and respond to those and move on. So whatever your preference is. We'd like to get this
I have a
done
question.
first. though.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, is this work tied to the development of that property? In other words, if he decides he's not going to develop that property, does that grant go away?
So the grant, I think the goal is that we get the grant. So there's a lot of competition for the grant, whether it's fully funded or not. Obviously, we would be contributing like $350,000 to match the grant. If, it comes down to the point, he's going to have to make a full commitment to the grant. If the grant comes in, he has to commit to his money so that it does cover the cost of the improvements. If something happens in between there, I think there is a chance, there's some options until the grant is awarded and accepted by the supervisor. But the intent is that if it's accepted, there's going to be a firm financial commitment to make sure that all the, costs
I'm just wondering, like, if he gets all through this, he gets the grant and then he decides, he doesn't want to do the project or he can't do the project, or then he backs out, does that intersection still get developed?
I think we protected ourselves against that, didn't we, Ron, last night? Protected ourselves.
Well, it said that these are 2 separate plans. They are not the same plan. Now, obviously, let's assume that Dr. Khan cannot complete the project, even this project, for no fault of his own. He was in a car crash and God forbid becomes disabled or incompetent or can't do anything anymore with respect to what he would want to do as a financier, just like any of us would, or something else would occur. I think that the intersection may go south if that happens. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, if the township is saying he's got to commit 30% of his funds, and it's not just funds, he committed either property or engineering services or other things for 30% of the project. So let's say 300,000 for round numbers. If the project doesn't go through because he can't make it go through, I don't know if you would throw that 300,000 at it, but
Well,
I can't speak for him.
impression that what we did last night was essentially getting to guarantee this.
But I think there's a couple things that could happen. We can put this application, the goal is to get the application in to make this an option to proceed. It could be that we don't get the grant. There's a lot of competition for this money. It could be that we get a partial grant. So I think when the answer on the grant comes back, there's going to be an opportunity then where all the details need to come together. And if it's going to proceed, the supervisors have made it clear that Dr. Khan needs to provide a guarantee at that point so that we're not because this will actually be funded to the supervisors and managed that way. So the clear understanding I have is that when we get whatever grant we get, full, partial, whatever, there's going to be a at that point, there will need to be agreement to guarantee that those funds are there. So the township's not into a project that they don't know what their responsibility is. So
When do they make the decision on the grant?
I think they're expecting April sometime in the spring.
And so just to answer what Supervisor Lovenheim said is that he did not guarantee the project last night. He said, when we get the grant, I will then enter into the grant, the guarantee agreements, et cetera, et cetera. So as long as
Okay.
the supervisor.
So he can back out at that point, and then you just don't get the grant. The money goes to somebody else.
And just,
And we talked about if we gave up the grant, is that gonna hurt township in the future with PennDOT, whatever? And the feeling, according to Mr. Tressler and other planning professionals there, that will not hurt. You get the money back a little bit.
Just so I'm clear, the road on the top, that is the road to school.
This is this is driving down the school. Correct. So this
Okay.
will line up.
So there's a stoplight already there.
and,
The
and
spotlight's already there, yes. It
And-
needs this realignment and some work here to provide for the turning lanes.
Honestly, that, right now where that is, I find that dangerous all the time when I see cars coming out of it,
Right.
taking turns.
that's what they're trying to fix.
You might find some motorists though that feel that it's a challenge for them to go through that now.
I do.
It is.
Twice a day I go through it every day.
So just for those of us, just to get it, where was the original building gonna be, the original short stay medical center?
In that big trapezoid.
Yeah, I
Right
don't,
there, huh?
I don't know exactly. In this
Yeah.
part here, there's a power line that goes through.
Yeah.
And, so that you kind of have to develop around
Okay.
that. But basically, I think in this area here,
On 447.
running on 447, but access would be proposed off of the realignment of Franklin Hall Road.
So Ron, is that project still alive?
Well,
The,
the project, they've submitted a
The Cons
new
original.
sketch plan.
No, it's just a sketch plan.
They've submitted a new sketch plan that's a mixed-use development. So
They were
I
in
have
your
not looked at it yet because it's not there yet, not there yet, if you know what I mean.
right,
The-
it's just a
The
concept.
medical center is off the table. This is now
Okay.
a mixed-use development of sorts.
We're not
And
voting on
John did do a review, but he just finished it today. So all of us need to,
So this,
Look at
we're asking for just a recommendation that's consistent with your comp plan, just the realignment,
Understand,
not anything on the project.
right.
So moved.
if you read that little blurb there, I know you can't see it there. Doug, but it says future mixed-use incentivized development. That's what it's saying there. That little
Just
blurb.
to back to Doug, 10 years ago, he had plans for a hospital there.
Yeah.
That never happened. He
Right,
came back maybe 3 years ago.
Couple of years ago.
For like an apartment. It was,
Not the same.
yeah, but it was like, he had like 500 square feet of commercial and the rest of it was apartment.
right.
And that was the one that I think we kind of poo-pooed it, where we have a lot of people in the
A
audience.
lot
that
of
were
people
checking.
came saying, we don't want all those apartments, too much parking,
Right.
blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
So now it's
that I
it's a
remember.
new plan that we don't know what it is, but
Okay.
apparently it's more of a mixed use.
Right, regardless. The road.
So I make a motion, we recommend the intermodal grant.
I think it's that the realignment of the intersection is consistent with your comprehensive.
Yes, you can say and be consistent with or follow the township engineer review letter of November 10th. Perfect, that covers all of the issues that you just noted.
So David, is that your motion?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Nay.
Oh,
He likes the angle.
Mr. Riccoboni, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you for asking.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you also.
Okay, thank you. So I have a board with a plan. I don't need to show it tonight. If you'd like to have a 5-minute, I can do that. Or I can take.
Mr. Albert's on a schedule. We'll look at it the next time.
Yeah, we'll look at it the next
time.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay.
What I'll do for you, Nate, is I'll send you a letter or something, or you got John's letter, but I'll just maybe say as a sequel to the planning commission
Yes.
vote last night, blah, 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 and, so you have something to put in with your plan.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, signage ordinance. Adjustment, that's All right. Before we get to the signage ordinance, because this thing has new signs, many of these things I don't mind at all. But I'm gonna look right here. See number 5, the standards of luminosity,
I thought that said bad words.
if only. All right, so here's luminosity. This is half a mile from us here where, what's this? Yeah, they're glaring like crazy tonight. I drove right by them. It's crap.
Did you do that tonight?
No, that was the other night, but I just drove by it on the way here.
Huh.
This is the guy that's down here next to PNS. He's got it lit up here like an airplane tarmac. Okay, which,
I asked them to turn them down, but I'll take a look at them.
well, they're not on any kind of anything we had, any kind of building plan anyway, to be honest with you, which leads to the fact that we could do all of this, but we still don't have enforcement, Bob. Nobody goes out and does anything with whatever the sign.
Except here, the supervisor himself says he wants to go out.
I mean,
Correct.
really, I mean, as
the
much
other
as
thing
I
is-
appreciate it,
I
but
got a BB gun.
But also there
a
is.
12 gauge.
I got one of those.
They do go out and pull things down. It's just super selective. Because I mean, and I would just say this, our township zoning officer, I mean, I know that my family's business has had multiple issues with signage. Because it does not, and rightly does not conform to current zoning ordinance. I'm just saying, it's not that it's not enforced, it's just it's enforced very selectively.
Which means it's not enforced.
Right.
I mean, that you might as well. I mean, which means it's basically not enforced.
Yeah, but it also, yeah.
I mean, I know the problems that you guys have down there. And I don't know if you've gone through the variance, you probably have. I'm not gonna go through it all.
By the way, just speaking of enforcement, one of the bigger things we've done here is taken it out of the zoning chapters 27 and put it into its own chapter, which exists, but was never used. And the reason is that first, it's easy to find, and secondly, what Ken both has a problem with is anytime he has to try to enforce something in signage, he has to go through the process of the zoning code, which is they give them 30 days notice, see if they want to appeal to the zoning hearing board, it goes on and on. This way, you can just go to court immediately and get them and find them. So it's much easier for him to enforce than it was before.
If there's you mean like if there's a proper ordinance, blah, blah, blah. What is there now? Just complaint / nuisance?
Not nuisance.
It's part of the zoning code, so in other words, he has to give them 30 days notice.
Oh, okay.
They can go to the zoning hearing board if they want, then he can go to the judge and get, a cease and desist order. It's extremely difficult.
Do you ever get information from him on what he's done with regard to submitting for issues? You guys ever, as
We
supervisors,
still
ever
haven't.
review any of that? What he does in regard to issues?
Yeah, no, no.
Yeah.
We've requested
Yeah.
to see that, but we keep getting told that that's not our.
All I can say is, we're working on it.
Yeah.
It's difficult
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons.
no, we talk.
I mean, he's good at enforcement sometimes, but he's not good at writing up the form. Anyway, that was one of the bigger things. There were some things that we discussed at the meeting in the spring, which I changed here, trying to fix. Some of it was about temporary signs, flags, and things that none of us like.
Yeah,
But I don't think we can out them, I'll just try to make them.
You can't outlaw flag signs?
I don't think. we can.
Why not?
I don't think you can. Ron, can you tell me, I don't think you can outlaw something in all districts. Sign.
Sure you can. They're not entitled to whatever their kind of, their specific kind of sign is.
You would want to tell a business they can't put up any of these things.
Yeah,
Well,
they're ugly.
I mean, I feel that They should have the right for a short period of time. for their kids.
It never ends up being.
You want to say no?
Ron?
Well, you have in the proposed ordinance, do you not, a section that says these signs are prohibited in all districts? And then you go on to list them. Let me see here for a second, if I recall correctly.
The current or the?
Section 112. Prohibited permanent signs in all districts. Now they're permanent as opposed to temporary, so let's just not get too far afield with that, but it says wheeled signs, string of lights, progressive signs, banners of things that go up in the air and come down again or whatever. Lighted signs projecting over roadway, so it does say that those signs are not permitted anywhere. So I'm not quite sure what the question might be.
Yeah, portable and wheeled signs, right?
Except as a temporary sign. So again, these are permanent signs, and then you go back to what is a temporary sign. And, the temporary signs are in section 106 to talk about retail business, business premises, etc. You might want to just basically deal with temporary signs that deal with something that moves quickly, like as you have there, a real estate sign where the property gets sold and then it gets removed. A political vote for Joe Schmo sign, that after the election gets removed, etc. The temporary promotional signs. And again, you're saying that those signs, are permitted, banners, flags, blow up, etc. But must be located behind the boundary of the street line and streetway, etc. For a maximum of 3 months. So I'm not sure if we can skinny the cat that easily and say, well, we can have those signs for 3 months, but we can't have them for longer than 3 months, but
Why?
I'm just saying, I'm not, no, you can say that. I would rather say you don't have it at all,
A legal sign?
rather than say you can have a temporary
Down by the
sign for 3 months.
gas station across that little turn, there's a big, 4x4 for sign on the
Yeah.
one guardrail sign. I've never seen a big sign like that. It's a sign for the election, but did you see it? But did you see where it's placed? It was fastened to the guardrail?
I haven't seen it, but
That's a new location.
anything it's an election sign is legal.
Anyway.
In the right of way or on private property. You can't,
This is on the current land.
and we cannot, by a Supreme Court. we cannot-
No, they are that, you're not.
Signs or anything.
And there's no permit required, they could just put them up.
Anywhere you
So
want.
what enforcement do you have to make sure they take them down?
Well, I've submitted it, I've put this in here that they have to get them down within 5 days.
Yeah, that they have to get that after the election time.
So what if they don't?
Well, then you can take them down.
Either we can take them down and charge them for it.
Yeah.
But there's nothing here that says you can do that. There's nothing in here that says you can do that.
It says in here that we have the right to take it.
Yeah, I think they did say that.
And charge them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully-
Because I picked a sign up the other day for Zama, and that was back from the primaries. It's been sitting over there for 6 months.
Well, we can have the road crew just go and take them out if they're not taken out in 5 days.
Yeah, this lets you do that.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
In other words, we can't tell anybody when they can put it up. They can put it up a year before if they want. Okay, we can't tell anybody.
Well, I think there's some rules that you can't put them up before a certain
We
date.
had that rule, but that's not legal.
yeah, you're on pretty shaky ground.
It's a case called Reed versus Town of Gilbert, it happened in Arizona. And the Supreme Court basically threw out all of the sign rules about political signs, religious signs, even temporary signs like for sale signs. I mean, we can't really, we can hopefully control the size of them, right? And we can control when they have to be taken down.
Mhm.
But other than that, we really can't control anything. What I've said in here is, you do not need a permit, which you don't, but we would like you to inform the zoning officer of who's responsible for the signs that we don't who to call when they come down.
Because it's required to be written somewhere on the sign.
But that's all we can do.
Well, for example, there's little signs that say, we buy houses, call 610-555.
Well, there's Wildcat signs.
Yeah, so are they allowed to be put up?
No,
That would be a temporary sign and on property that you don't own, it doesn't advertise the business on the property, no. There's a section in that about.
Okay.
So, but that's different than a sign that's advertising something that's for sale in like a house.
Yeah.
Something that's a religious.
If
sign.
that was the business on that property, it would be allowed temporarily. Based on what I.
Yeah, I understand, but they're all over the place, sir. He doesn't have businesses
Well,
all
we
over.
discussed this in the spring, and what I put in here
Mhm.
was something that says, okay, if you've got a grandfathered inside, like for instance, on Seven Bridges, there's several signs for plumbing, realty, whatever it is. If you do anything to that sign, if you paint it, if you repair it, whatever, it has to conform to the signage now. The signage now says it must be on property that you own or lease. It either has to be a sign that's for a business that is on that property, or it has to be something that would be considered a billboard. The billboard can only be two sizes, either what's called a junior billboard, which Frank has one of over by the car wash, or a 30-sheet billboard, which is the normal size billboard. It cannot be anything
What's the
else.
size of a junior? What's the size of a junior, you say?
It's in here, but it's, if you look at the one, for instance, on Milford Road, as you're coming north towards Marshall's Creek, there's one over on the side that's a light up billboard. That's a junior billboard.
6x12 basically.
So big.
Oh, they're big.
That's a standard sign, and it's a billboard. It has to be a billboard.
So you go back 20 years ago, when my partner was a supervisor, there was a big push with countywide to try to reduce the number of billboards because
I can't hear you.
there was a push to reduce the number of billboards, to actually try to get rid of them. And that's how the Seven Bridges over where the Dailies have their property got cleaned up. They had a litter of billboards there and they cleaned it all up and they put those up on the hill, anticipating the bypass was gonna go out there, but it didn't. Are we still trying to eliminate billboards or at least reduce them? Because I think they just litter the landscape. You got this beautiful landscape and
John and I have discussed this. They can't be more than, I think they're 300 feet apart. They have to be. at least
Less than 300.
No,
You can't crowd them together.
right. And they can't be the only, or economic
ED.
ED, thank you.
And they can only be in the ED zone, period. There's no other zone they can be in.
Both personal and also there's a bunch of them. I do think I like that you've added the directional signs, but I think it needs to be clarified a little bit. And it's right. I think they're needed and they do exist across the township. And I think they need to be there for PennDOT to allow them.
Not a township road.
PennDOT requires, I just did the application for, we have on one of the blue billboards, the sign, attraction. And then in order for them to then put, they was trying to craft tool for a tour now. In order for them to put that there, it has to be in the township code that they're allowed. Which right now they say they are. Well, my concern, I'm thinking about,
What section are you in?
allowable in all zones.
107.
7.
Those are your directional and identification signs. Is that what you're
Directional
talking about?
identification signs, which I think are really important. But I think, I don't know if we want them to be everywhere, because right now, if they're just completely permissible, then anyone could start just putting up direction signs to get to their business. And so like a great example for this one, if you come to the top of Buttermilk Falls Road to River Road, right now, there's a hodgepodge of signs there. And a lot of them are sort of grandfathered in. I mean, the reason that Shawnee hasn't taken their giant one down is because it's been there forever. And there's fear that we take it down, we can't have any directional sign there, but we would probably replace that with a much nicer one if there was a nicer way to have a directional sign. And I think it's especially relevant at almost any T in this township. You arrive at a T and you don't know whether you're going left or right. It's good to know Route 8 is that way and, some key landmarks. But I think it needs to be,
Well,
I love that it's there personally, but I think it's a little bit too permissive right now.
okay, it's just some language.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it now. You know, and-
As in, directional signs at, honestly, could be permissible at Ts, at dead ends, and that are parallel to the main road. So you don't necessarily want every 200 feet sign, they'll keep going, you're almost at the Wawa or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's only on parallel at a T, on land that is leased or owned as well, I think that's important.
There's something else in here about, not a shopping center sign, but it's another kind of sign with a lot of different, businesses on it.
Pylon sign,
What?
a pylon?
No, I'm talking about, sign that has, I know it's in here somewhere, but it's like, it's like the sign for a shopping center, with a lot of different.
It's section 109(2), B2, or 2. Permanent freestanding business signs, EV enterprise zone, M1.
But then it's further clarified on G. Sign plaza, I think you're referring to.
Plaza, sign plaza. G. That what you're looking at? Yeah. It's,
What number is that, Robert?
109 G.
9. Yeah.
That's what I'd love to see, at the key intersection of Buttermilk and River Road, to clean up that lot, something like that.
But it's not ED, it's residential.
Yeah.
That's also the issue with that property is, I guess it's residential there, but I mean, it's sort of more of a resort. But it's because resorts are allowed in residential zones. The underlying zone is residential and therefore you're conforming to residential, but it's all written as though you're in a R1 district, but it's not R1. Same as the general store on River Road, same as Jimmy Keystone. They're all, because they're all residential, their signage is supposed to be like in a little neighborhood.
Well, although I did say you're.
That's been up.
Somewhere in residential, if you are a business in residential, you can have a sign at any, that's all faces of the building that you can see from the street.
Yeah.
Which would be, I think that's Shawnee Inn. I mean, Jam and Keystone, no sign on the other side of it. Right. But just email me something for what you think the direction is.
Same hold true for all the rest of this?
What?
If something jumps out of it,
Yeah.
email you?
Yeah, this is just a
Yeah.
draft.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to get this prepared so that we can move ahead with it, but it says draft on it, it's a draft, and if you look through the draft, you can see all my typos.
Yeah, that's right. I will say this, I actually far prefer the clarity of it, to be honest with you.
Me too.
I prefer the clarity instead of, X number of square feet per, pi times the distance to the moon or whatever the crap is in the other one. I mean, no, I prefer the clarity of it because it is easier to administer. Now, whether it turns into something we don't like to administer. Anyway, but I like that direction. Actually, I like the readability direction of it, to be honest with you, Robert.
So
Very
there
much so.
is no hope for my Freeport, Maine idea, which is the standardization of all signs to be Helvetica, so that certain size and with a shape that matches the architecture of the house. They should be white with dark green lettering. If I'm not gonna get that.
I think you're in the wrong state.
Yeah.
I will say this, I think And I've looked around the township a lot as far as trying to study what people have done. By and large, business owners put up signs that, you know, connote what their business is and are trying to attract people. They're gonna not put a bad sign. The opposite is, let's say, Kenny Shuckman's some signs on, what is it, Odd Lot there? Say cheap, right? That's what he's selling,
Yeah.
cheap. But anybody else is gonna put up a sign that looks nice, because that's what they're.
Yeah, like a beer place, yeah.
Well,
Okay, no, I get you, I
I
get
don't
you.
know what they're selling, because the sign they have out in front. of
Caught
it-
fire.
Huh?
Is that the one that looks like it caught fire?
The
Is
beer
that what happened?
Well, it looks like it's burnt.
Like it's burnt, right?
It looked like
Yeah,
somebody-
yeah, right.
somebody with a spray can sprayed it black,
All right.
and it's been sitting there for I don't know how long.
Well, it does, there is, if you look.
There's a dilapidated-
Any lit sign has a lot more criteria requirements than this.
Yeah.
If
that's
it's
true.
self-lit, it needs a permit, it needs to be approved by,
Right.
which I think is appropriate, because that one,
Which is always what it's been. The only difference here is if you're just putting up a sign with, you know, a light shining on it, okay, there's nothing else. You don't need a permit, but we're saying that, you'd be wise to let the zoning officer see a sketch of it so he can approve it, because if you put it up and it's not conforming, you gotta take it down.
Not conforming to what?
Hmm?
Not conforming
To
to what?
the ordinance.
Not conforming to the ordinance. Either in size or
Yeah, Frank.
anything else about it.
Questions?
Yeah, Frank.
You know, that kind of, something that's jumping out of me here. Section 102, nonconformity, design permits luminosity. The nonconformity, from what I'm understanding here, is that if you have a pre-existing non-conforming sign, and use a classic example of the billboard that I have there in the car wash, the digital, that's a six-figure billboard, very, very expensive. But aside from that, I took down, I think, I matched the square footage. I took down 9 signs,
Mhm.
8 or 9, to give me that square footage, and that's how I came up with that. Now, what this is, as I understand this, including a repair, I would have to make that conforming,
Yes,
and I don't know how you would do that.
you
There was
don't.
a pre-existing non-conforming sign that was approved in the previous
Remember that
administration.
your
Back
sign
in
is
around the
also,
same time that Adams did the bypass signs. So if something happened to that sign, I had to fix it or whatever the case may be. You're saying that I would have to conform to this ordinance. And in all honesty, that would be probably impossible.
well, but remember, it was approved by the supervisor.
Yes, it was.
So,
And planning committee, everybody, yeah.
but we'll really come under the paragraph above, the board of supervisors and plan commission shall consider that the ensuing list of rules and restrictions is not necessary to prove or prohibit anything now on this list. Later urges support the consideration and inclusion of new ideas. Okay.
Right, and is that, like Bob Westlaw was with them tonight, actually.
Well, if we approved it, I mean, I'm talking about things we never approved. That are
Well,
just
I'll give you an
down the road.
example. I had dinner with Bob tonight. Bob Westlaw, who owns that piece kind of across his couple of billboards on it. If he wants to change the copy or change the lights or do any kind of work to it, that doesn't inherently change the billboard. According to this, I don't know if he would be allowed to do that.
Well, which signs you're talking about?
I think they're probably 288 square feet, maybe they're 12 by 24. So I think the one may go in, if you're heading north, you you pass LTS. You know, those boards right there.
Those are
They were,
They're signs.
yeah, they're billboards and they've been there forever.
I don't think they were ever approved and put out.
Well, it was probably before signage was even thought of, you know, back in the day.
And at that time, they were on his property. Now they're not because he doesn't own the property.
No, he does on the property.
I thought that was Dr. Peterson.
Mhm.
I'll see that.
I'm talking about LTS, the old building. Do you remember where Larry had the building across the monster building, right?
Before my.
No, it's right here. It's, you're heading north on 209.
Directly next to the stream.
You pass the beer store, keep going, you follow the creek. On the right is a beautiful building. It looks like probably one of those buildings in. Fort Wire, you know, down in Philadelphia.
John Adams lived here, yeah.
Yeah, that, and across you, but right before you get to the monster building, he has 2 billboards right there.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I have a couple of pre-existing non-conforming. No, I got approvals for those. But it's still on his property. It's on his property, right? And billboards that I have that I got permits for are on my property. But if I have to change something, like those, whatever the case may be, I think we should look at that a little bit.
Frank, just because you got an approval doesn't mean that regulations can't change around it. Once you get an approval, that doesn't mean it's an approval till the end of time.
Well, you would. think
No,
that-
no, you wouldn't. No, no. If you lived, if you had a residence in a strip that then got zoned, say, commercial, whatever we want to call it, you now have a residence, which is a non-conforming use in a commercial zone. You change it, you got a problem. A non-conforming problem, same thing. Just because there's a sign that you got a permit for, it doesn't mean any difference. You can change it around it,
Your supervisors could arbitrarily just take that.
but not arbitrarily. This is going through a hearing process and a zoning. This isn't arbitrary. It's a legislative act. They can go through and do all those things. Sure they can.
In a situation like that, I'm just talking devil's advocate, you might have issues with. If you're repairing your house, right?
Oh, I understand that.
I was saying, so like with this whole thing around changes to your sign, I don't know, maybe it's a question, this is a really legal question for Ron,
But like I
It's
said,
just a basic
pre-existing
repair.
non-conforming has always been.
and you're
Pre-existing
grandfathered in.
non-conforming, and I did not think that.
You can maintain your non-conforming use. Why wouldn't you be able to maintain, you can maintain a non-conforming building?
Well,
So
because
you have a non-conforming building, you can't put a roof on it? Of course not. Of course you can change the light. Why wouldn't you think you'd be able to change the light?
According to, have you read this? section
Yes,
102?
yeah, I know.
And you're saying that you can repair the billboard?
Well, it's your
That's not
building.
what it says. It says if
No.
replaced and or altered in any
Altered.
way, including repair, repainting, changing the message of the owner, changing message or owner, then they must be conformed to this ordinance. That's pretty steep.
that's strict.
And that came directly out of our conversation last
Mhm.
spring. So if there's another way we can think, getting rid of clutter signs along the 209 and Milford Road that are just there. That's what we're really all talking about. That's what we talked about last spring.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how else to word it. I tried this, doesn't work.
What do you
What else
suggest,
can we
Frank?
do?
Excuse me?
What wording do you suggest?
I'm suggesting pre-existing non-conforming signs are exactly what they are. They should be left alone. If you're going to expand it, of course, then you have a right to, well, whatever the law says, 1.5 times, whatever it is. Anyway, if you're leaving the board the same, you're changing the copy. If LTS decides to say this is the new house we're putting up, I don't think they should have to take that board down. Because what it is the planned obsolescence of every board that's pre-existing non-conforming, because eventually they're gonna need some kind of work.
Well, let's think about it. I mean, I'm looking for suggestions on this. I put that in because of our conversation, but if it doesn't work, just figure out something that does. Because we know what we want. We want to get rid of junk signs.
Right.
Okay, so,
When you think about it, which junk signs you're referring to aren't really well.
Frank, if you go down, let's say, 209, you see a lot of these signs that are just sitting there. And they're not on anybody's property. I mean, somebody
Give me an
owns it.
example. I'm not finding, I'm not thinking of any.
I'm thinking there's one for a plumbing company. There's another one that Bob Brown has up there. There's a couple of.
Okay, you're the one that I'm talking to record, we won it 19 years in a row or something.
Yeah.
But that's a pre-existing non-conforming sign that's been there for as long as I can remember.
But it's also, you know, let's say, not adding to the aesthetic.
It's an
beauty of
eyesore.
The area, okay?
You guys kind of got sidetracked a little bit earlier, and you're right, I came by that airport when I came in here. I was like, holy mackerel.
Yeah. Shocking.
And all I could think of was maybe it's for security for him, but that, you know, something like that should be addressed, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see spark plugs from 200 feet.
Yeah, no, these are eyesores and that's what we're trying to get rid of.
Okay, well, yeah, eyesores, but it's like, how do we define that and how do we?
I don't know.
I think ultimately, for what, I mean, Ron can you jump in from a legal standpoint? I'm not sure you can have a repair there. If someone's repairing an existing non-conforming.
The zoning ordinance, I'm just looking now, and I understand this is not under the zoning ordinance, but the existing part is. Has a section with respect to repairs or maintenance of non-conforming uses, and if it's simply maintenance or repair, it doesn't appear that you need to jump through a lot of hoops, but if you're making a major structural alteration, et cetera, and I'm not sure how that's defined, that requires that you do something, so.
I think to your point, Robert, I think adding that language, but limiting, you can't put repairs in there, but if someone's gonna repair it, you're gonna get rid of some of them. If something's really dilapidated and they're like, okay, we're gonna build back another one, well, you can't, right? Gonna address some of them, but you're not gonna address all of them, but I don't know if you can.
Yeah,
I think one of the things
I think I'm just looking for the language. Maybe Ron can supply it to me. There's something that.
well, the only way to do it is through specifics. This is why law books are this thick. And I'm afraid that we're gonna get, tripping over ourselves here. But one of the things that we could do, for example, Frank mentioned changing the copy. All right, so here's a billboard, okay? And it says fine dining. And then there's somebody who buys it from the owner and they paint over it and they redecorate it, but it's the same sign and they put massage parlor. Now, to me, that's degrading of the neighborhood. It's degrading of our community. Okay, now call me a prude, but I don't think anyone would say that, massage parlor is a better message to send than fine dining.
I think Scott would jump in on this, that, you're gonna have,
You can't control.
that's all going on.
You can't control
Making sure what someone wants to say.
it. So that's
Because it's legal.
freedom of speech.
Yeah, right. It's not offering a legal service, right?
Well,
That's opinion. I'm sure a massage therapist would think differently than you are.
Perhaps.
You're thinking of back in the day when Menstruso and kind of like.
Oh, yeah.
You're thinking that.
Hey, that place is still there.
The building is, right?
Let's tear it down. When's that gonna happen, by the way? Anyway,
well, so the question is how we control non-conforming. Pre-existing signs. I'm not sure, but I'm looking for some brilliant suggestions.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll give you some suggestions, Rob,
There's
because
light.
even with the temporary signs, when you say they're supposed to be up for 3 months, well, 3 consecutive months, or is someone gonna be cute, do month 1, stop, month 3, stop, month 5, stop, or 1 week, and then another week, and then another week, it's 3 months. So is it a consecutive 3 months? And is it 3 months in a year? Or 3 months, stop one day and then do another 3 months? So we need to do a little tweaking on some of that stuff.
You want to ban those signs, but they won't go away. I know that.
So I'll give you some info on that.
All right.
Because we have all these ordinances. You see how many that Julie got for? And the size is amazing. Okay. Pocono Township or Stroud Township, 69-page sign ordinance. Okay. Middle Smithfield, 49-page sign ordinance.
Oh, that's work.
There you go.
Okay. Tobyhanna, 46 pages. The lowest one is the one that shocked me the most, Pocono Township. They're the busiest and they have the smallest sign ordinance, 14 pages.
Ours is short, it was pretty short.
And we also do have Freeport, Maine and Williamsburg, West Virginia.
But in looking at many of these ordinances, you can see where one's copied from the next, and then nobody thinks about it. And it's an attempt to micromanage everything, which never works.
No, that doesn't work. You're right. Yeah, it doesn't.
That's why I tried to make something clear and concise. Anybody could read it. But I think we're talking about 2 areas. Pre-existing non-conforming and temporary signs that are, eyesores, nuisances, like flag sign, blow up sign, which we'd love to get rid of altogether, but I don't know.
So get rid of them.
Or enforce it.
Well, I know Doug had previously commented, we'd like to get to Freeport, Maine. I would like to get somewhere between where we are now and Freeport, Maine, and get rid of as many of these junky signs as we can. And I'd love to even see the billboards go away, or at least not allow any more, because I just think they're an eyesore to the community.
Well, one of the things I've tried to do here also is at least introduce the concept of a scenic corridor. And I think the one that we have that would be easy to pass would be from County Bridge Road to the Middle Smithfield line, because there's nothing there anyway, and most of it's owned by PennDOT. So it really, it would only be a way of saying that, well, one exists, but eventually at some point, I'd love River Road to be that kind of a corridor.
When you say River Road, most of that's part of the park. So are you talking like from Shawnee to where the park starts?
Talking about, let's say from
We're talking about,
Mini Sink.
yeah, from
Yeah.
from
Oh,
the
okay.
sewer plant up.
And it's not saying you can't do signage there, it's just no billboard,
There has to be a
standard
standard.
size, and so forth, that's all.
Yeah. Well, that
Pretty
would
much
be good.
what's there now.
I'm all for, real billboards. Vermont is so nice.
It really is.
Let's not forget, going back to 209, PennDOT is very, very restrictive on any billboards that go on any kind of signs on these roads. As a matter of fact, I put a couple of signs up on the bypass when they shut the bridges down for Alaska Pete's. When you couldn't get to Alaska Pete's unless you went over the river and through the bridge and came the
Yeah.
other way. And those signs didn't last 2 weeks. They took them down, sent me a friendly letter, and that was it. I mean, they don't,
They just took them down.
they sent me the friendly letter and I took them down.
Oh, gee.
But they were only, I ate into it, but 2 feet maybe, just a kind of a directional, and we were down for almost 6 months.
Do you have this, Frank? Do you have this ordinance?
Yes, I do.
So have you had a chance to go over it? I mean, to
No, I
read it?
read it inside now, yeah. I think could we be a little bit more clear possibly, Robert, on the LED, the digital boards? I think you're gonna find that most people, and such as myself right now, I'm thinking about putting a digital board at Alaska Pete's. Very, very expensive, very clean looking, very et cetera. But I'm not sure if it's really spelled out, you can do electronic boards in there.
Well, it's not spelled out you can, very,
You can't in our residential.
you can't, no. In
Not a
our
residential, but you can in a.
ED, in other words, it's not spelled out because I assume that any kind of sign is okay, all right? There are gonna be signs in the future, we don't know what they are. LEDs now, 5 or 10 years LED may but what John and I, put in here was that they have to conform to whatever the engineering and figures and things are. We don't know what those are, they keep changing.
Is this a sign that, one of those signs that changes, Frank?
Yeah, it'll be very similar to the one that's on by the car wash.
Right?
Except it will not be an off-premise, it'll be an on-premise sign, and it will not be, it'll change maybe on a daily basis.
Ah.
It won't be every 12 seconds or anything like that.
Well, there's, I think PennDOT regulations.
Yeah, I have a pen up for that too, for my sign, it was a
Okay.
lot of work getting it.
What's on the regulations and their industry regulations.
On. Oh, sorry. In the non-conforming one. Can it be something along the lines of if it is advertising a business that is not, that has been closed for 6 months or longer, then the non-conformance is gone?
Well, I have some notes here as we were talking about.
Because that's typically
Like,
what
to
happens.
Replace the sign, you can't replace it. It's just like you have a non-conforming building, it burns down. You can't put up another building out because you can't conform with the zoning regs.
Because you can't conform.
So no replacement. You want to fix it or
Repair it,
repair
you
it,
can't
but you can't replace
Yeah.
it. So I'm gonna put some language in there to make sure.
Because
that-
typically non-conforming is abandoned for a period of time.
Well, yeah,
Then
even
it's gone.
as you know, a structure, if it's abandoned for, I don't know if our ordinance is
Well, even a
12
use-
months or 24 months.
Yeah,
Usually it's
something
12
like, yeah, right, but there's a use, and a sign doesn't have to be 12 months over because it's not an occupied structure, so it can be for a shorter amount.
Because you get a non-conforming use, as you know,
Mhm.
and a non-conforming structure, so this would be the use.
Yeah,
And that's why Robert wants to, or Supervisor Lovenheim wants to take it out of zoning. I'm not quite sure if we can do that, but I think we could if we needed to, but
Oh, okay,
That's procedurally left for another day to say that, you're
okay.
really doing ad hoc zoning, blah, 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 blah. And I don't mean to interrupt before we adjourn, because I'm not sure how longer we're gonna go.
Yeah,
Lucas, remember, we added that thing to the agenda. Act 65 of 2021 requires a motion to add it to the agenda, a reason why it's being added to the agenda, and tomorrow an amended agenda has to be posted on the website and has to be
Yes.
posted at the notice place here in the building. So remember that.
Tomorrow, Monday, right?
Well, yeah, tomorrow.
For
Be the next business day,
supervisor's agenda, right?
which would be Monday.
Talking about the supervisor's agenda.
No,
You wanna bring
this
this back?
agenda, Any agenda.
Any.
Actually, I like the
Agenda
direction
has
of
to
it. To be
follow
honest with
those
you.
rules.
I like the direction of it. Nothing. I do.
So look, any suggestions?
I'm
This
for
is a
some,
draft. Michael, you're gonna tell
I'm
me
for
about.
some suggestions related to the directional.
I interrupted Mr. Bono here. What were you gonna
I
say?
got a quick question for you, Ron. If someone, let's just use Bob as an example, let's look. I may have overspoken, I thought it was pre-existing non-conforming.
You never overspeak.
Okay. And I'm quite sure he has a legal permit for that board. And I guess that would be non-conforming because he's probably less than 500 feet from the other sign.
Well,
So that's
that's
a
not conforming, so you understand, is that this was enforced before zoning. And then when zoning came in, it changed the rules, but doesn't apply to this because it's grandfather.
Okay.
So that's what non-conforming.
So I'll use myself as an example. I have a couple of signs up that you needed 500 linear feet
Okay.
to get a permit. I have a permit from the township and I have a permit from the state. It's not the LED one. Now,
Okay.
is that gonna be considered non-conforming or is that?
If this ordinance is adopted, and if in reading this ordinance, it makes those things not conform, yeah, they'll be non-conforming.
Doesn't mean they're torn down.
It doesn't mean they're torn down or anything, but they become non-conforming. Just think of that, did you have a pizza shop in your house? And now the zoning changes to say just residential. You can't have any business, eye doctor, pizza shop, a lawyer, whatever. That's non-conforming. It still stays there. And the law allows you to repair and fix it. And some ordinances say you can't make it more than 50% of its floor area and that kind of jazz. But you can still work with it as long as it doesn't get destroyed.
Once the
Once it
pizza
gets
shop
destroyed,
closes,
then you have a problem.
once the pizza shop closes in that example, it's done. It
Yeah,
can't
now-
come
now-
back.
Now you lose that non-conforming because you haven't used it.
How do you close the sign?
That's what I was saying, for what that-
The business for which it is advertised.
That's what, yeah, that's really, yeah.
You have to
I don't know. I'm just
somehow
just
put something-
brainstorming at the
Yeah,
moment.
For 24 months. But
Yeah, right. I'm just thinking. Okay.
Can we chew on this some more?
Yeah.
of course.
Absolutely. I mean, love you to email me. I have to.
Okay.
And, another thing we sort of skipped over was what about all of these, flag signs and blow up signs? What are we gonna do with that? Because
I think it's just,
I put in here, they can't be up more than 3 months. We know that's never gonna be enforced. I don't know what to do.
Prohibit them.
The other ones, they're also sort of the lines with the
The
triangle.
pennants.
What are they called?
Are they pennants?
And then whatever.
Pennant signs?
what about the inflatable man that?
That's what we're talking, those are the blow up signs.
Outlaw them,
Well,
all of them.
and then the other point that you had talked about at one point was distance on property, onto the property. Because I think that there's differences there, right? If it's in the backyard of your business and no one can see it, it's a sign, it's a blow up.
Wouldn't put it, you're not putting it up.
What?
If nobody can see it, you're not
No, I
putting
mean,
it up.
let's say you have a playground in the backyard and it's a.
Oh, that's not happening.
That's different, yeah.
I'm just saying it is, well, I mean, I think about a resort that has a huge property that you put signs up all the time, but they don't get see them from the road. They're not there for walking. Anyway, I know it's
I think it's a good point, but.
just
again,
something about like distance to 100 feet from the road, whatever. I mean, it's gonna be, well, I'm gonna throw that in my.
Yeah, put it in your phone. That's the thing.
But the other thing is to say, which I have seen in quarters, if you put these up, it'd only be for a special event like a sale or something. Maybe that's the way to do it all over the township.
And do they require permits?
They require a permit.
If they're having a sale every day.
Special event.
Right.
So the guy with the used
Weekend
car
sale.
lot wants to put flags up.
Right.
Has to come into the township and get a permit for those.
Whether ever it's ever gonna be enforceable is another
That's what he's
question.
saying.
We can
If it's
try.
hard.
Make a motion.
Anyway,
Mhm.
I gotta run, but
Yeah, so do we.
That was a sticking.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
suggestion, okay?
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Strunk. I'll second that.
Bring that motion to add the order.
I think a motion was made by the chair and seconded by
Yeah,
Mr. Strong to add that
yeah,
item to the agenda.
that's fine.
And the reason was in order to make the time limit for the grant.
For the grant application.
I think that
We
motion.
should vote for that. Vote on that.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right.
There you go.
And now, and adjourn first, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Got it. Andiamo.
8:15.
How about it?
Gentlemen, thank you.
See you, Frank.
See you, Frank.
Stop looking for little.
Hey,
There a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, for that birthday party, you look better now than you did then.
you wanna have a good brisket?
Got more hair than I do. Jesus, it's not
Have you
good,
been
Frank.
there?
You eat there all the time. I was there a couple of weeks ago for a
Wow.
birthday party.
Damn best brisket I've had in a while.
Actually, Scott, you and I go back to when you were 5 years old.
I was a little child. You guys were working at the house.